All right, so my name is Kimberly Braswell. I've clicked the go live, so we'll see if folks start coming in. Hopefully, those who have registered for this event will start coming in to be able to see this shortly. So I will linger for a little bit to see who's coming on in. As you're coming in, if you can, please do drop something inside of the comments to let me know you're here. I would love to be able to shout you out and say hello to you. Thank you for those who are tuning in. Thank you for those who will be checking it out. Hey, Amber, good to see you, sis. Hopefully, greetings, Kelly. Hello, hello. It looks like a call's coming in from my phone. Obviously, I can't pick that up. I'm just waiting for a couple minutes to see who else will be joining us. Hopefully, folks got the link to know. Well, I mean, y'all got it, right? So hopefully folks will be able to come in and see this. Greetings, greetings. Please do, if you're just coming on in, please drop something in the comments to let me know where you're coming from before we get into it. So grateful to be holding space with you. And I will be getting started momentarily. I know StreamYard, I'm doing this from StreamYard. StreamYard lags maybe a minute or two behind. Kind of like that fail safe that SNL did for Richard Pryor to make sure I don't do something bad. Hey, friends and family, chosen family. Hey, Whitney, good to see you. Well, I'm saying see you figuratively. Greetings, everybody. Thanks for coming on in. I'm just lingering just a few minutes to see who's coming in. Greetings, Tasha. So grateful to have you in the space. Yes, friends, as you're coming in, please do drop something inside of the comments to say who you are and where you're coming from. I'm going to start this content in a little bit so we can start talking about this workplace stress. And real talk, workplace trauma in some instances. By the way, as y'all are coming in, if you have questions or comments, please do make sure you drop that in the comment section as well. We are monitoring those, so I want to make sure that although I'm going to be sharing this information, I will make sure to answer as many questions as I can. So I've tried to leave some space for that. But if you're tuning in just now, remember this is going to be a conversation. We just having a lunch and an unlearn. We got to unlearn some things, friends and chosen family, that have been not so great practices that are making us sick. Like this is how we get sick and this is how we die. If you're coming on in, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please do drop a hello inside of the comment section so we know who you are and where you're coming from. And we just going to like form a little family up in here and have our conversation. I am curious for those who are tuning in or those who registered, what attracted you to this topic? Greetings, Tia from Wisconsin. Hey, Bridget. So grateful that y'all are joining us in the space. If you know others who need it, feel free to share this, or after it's done, we'll make this link live. This is our conversation for right now. We'll let other folks join later. So grateful y'all are in the space. Do put inside of the comments, what is it that drew you to this? I'm going to tell you before I pop up this information that I want to share with you. I have been doing this, whatever kind of work that's dealing with DEI, social justice, all kinds of stuff for many years now. And there was something that I didn't notice what was happening consciously. It wasn't a conscious thing that I noticed. And it was that work was making me sick. I don't know about y'all, But for me, I was trying to do big, heavy things. What's good, Izette? I'm so glad you're in the space. We got change makers in the room. Greetings, Miss Kyles. I see we got folks coming in from all over the place. So listen, y'all, I was trying to do like really deep, meaningful, heavy work inside of the system. And what I didn't realize was that it was making me sick. And I don't mean just like, oh, I'm sick of going to work, because we all have that experience from time to time. But I'm talking about I hit a peak, or maybe I should say a valley, where when I was trying to do meaningful work, not just come in, transactional work, time to make the donuts, I made the donuts. But when I was trying to do super meaningful work, I noticed that the powers that be, the system was getting in the way. The very system that hired me to do the work was getting in the way of me being able to do more meaningful work. I was getting in trouble for things that seemed like they were right or just. I was working overtime because I was trying to make sure that the good work happened and that people knew I was fighting for them. I was trying to, what's good? Hello, Deidre. I was trying to prove that justice would prevail, right? And in the process of trying to prove that justice would prevail, there were a couple things I didn't notice. One was that I was never home. The people who were closest and dearest to me were watching me go to work and then come home exhausted. And my best hours of the day, my best energy was expended on people who I was not in deep personal community with. So by the time I got to my own people, I had nothing left. I wasn't fighting for myself. I wasn't warring for my own wellness. And quite frankly, I ended up having to make a choice between my body or the work. And I don't know about any of y'all, if you can relate to this, but it is a pretty heavy thing to realize that the work that you care so deeply about is going to break your heart. And if you don't stop or at least slow down, that it might kill you. And I mean, quite literally, like, this is how we get sick and this is how we die, friends and family. So I'm going to show y'all some things. And I ask you to think about this as I'm going to show you these things. I want you to think about what is the state of your holistic wellness right now. I want you to think about all of the things on your plate. I want you to think about how you believe you have been purposed, what you believe you have been called to do. And I want you to think about if what you believe to be your calling is, I want you to think about if it is causing a sacrifice or taking a toll on your body and your mind and your spirit. Because if it's breaking you, my question for you is what you're trying to do sustainable? Are you doing it the right way? Are you misinterpreting your calling? Do you have a whole suite of gifts and you're trying to use one specific gift in one specific system? Is it worth us losing ourselves to try to do this work, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share some of this information with you. This is me, right? This is who we are and what we're doing. I have a story strategy consulting firm. So here's the deal with this too. The only reason why I became an entrepreneur is because I realized that working inside of systems directly for other people was actually making me sick. I spent a lot of my time working for other people getting in trouble. And it, like, on paper is good trouble, but not sustainable. And I knew there has to be another way to do this. And I don't know if I could do this employed by other people. That was the birth of my consulting firm. And I believed that I needed to do it and ground it in people's stories. And my consulting firm was the beginning of me realizing that me doing, and this is just for me, friends, I'm just talking about me. But when I was trying to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, it did not meet the needs of the people who I was trying to serve. We were having disempowerment issues. We were having major systemic oppressive and social justice issues And in the spaces and places where I was trying to do the work, I was only going to be allowed to minimally impact policies and practices and procedures. And that did not respond to the deeper hurts and pains of the people who I was trying to show up for. So I knew something had to change. I'm like, we got to make these spaces safer. They got to be braver. They got to be more courageous. I don't feel safe at work. If I'm supposed to be doing the work and I don't feel safe at work, how am I supposed to be in a genuine and authentic way doing it? And I'm curious, have y'all ever experienced that where you're supposed to be providing justice work for other people and you don't even feel like you're experiencing it? How can we offer something that we don't know and we don't feel and we're not experiencing? In many cases, we're trying to do movement work. We're trying to change the world. We are trying to create a reality that we have never seen, we have never experienced. How will we know when we get there? Especially if we are still hurting. What brought us into this work, right? So here's my question for you. Have you been experiencing stress? Have you been experiencing burnout? Burnout, stress, not the same thing. Stress might be a thing where like I'm tense, I'm overwhelmed. That's one thing. But if I'm tense and I'm overwhelmed while I'm in the midst of doing the work of the work and I have no support, that might be burnout. That might be burnout. And then we've got this whole trauma beast, which definitively is a deeply distressing experience. This word is getting overused. We get afraid of the terminology. But sometimes we got other stuff we're carrying that's not just stress. It's something else. And we have to be honest with ourselves about naming something, naming it. What is it? Am I calling this the right thing? Because if we call it the wrong thing, we can't treat it correctly, right? If you get misdiagnosed in the doctor's office, they give you the wrong medication, that's malpractice. We have to call things the right things. So that's why I have this in front of you. Is it stress? Is it burnout? Or is it trauma? We want to do the work, but what is the work doing to us in the process? So then I want to show this to you, right? Trauma, let's dig into this a little bit because some of us are experiencing workplace trauma. And it might be even more complex and complicated than that, right? So a couple things, actually a few things I want to show you. One is childhood trauma. I have quite honestly worked with some people where what was happening to them in the workplace, how they were showing up in their professional spaces was indicative of unhealed child trauma. I've seen someone be a horrible manager because they were still seeking the approval of a parent. I've seen someone who was in a position of power and didn't lean into the position of power because they came from a dysfunctional family and they, in their family, showed up as a peacemaker. So it's more important for them to seek peace than to seek some power. Not an abuse of power, but if you're in a leadership role and you're fearful, how does that help the other folks? I've seen people in professional roles who have survived abuse, who have survived neglect, and who just come into work hardcore. And we think they're mean. They're just mean. They're just always in a bad mood. We don't know what people have survived, particularly if they've been carrying this in their body for a long time. Keep in mind, there was a study called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. We talk about this for kids, child welfare, these kinds of things, but we're still carrying our own childhood traumas. And sometimes we're trying to do work for other people, helping them through problems we didn't heal for ourselves. So what happens if you're trying to do the work of the work and you're triggered and you don't know where that thing comes from, but the pain of what you're feeling feels old? Can anyone relate to this, where like the hurt that you're feeling feels older than the moment, right? Maybe some bad thing happened at work. A boss didn't speak to you correctly. You felt disempowered by a colleague, but you know that it's not just that moment. This hurts deeper than that. That might mean that it's tapped into some childhood trauma. It's old. That means we got some deeper work to do. Then we got this vicarious trauma. I really think about our helpers. I know we got some teachers on here. We got some HR professionals on here. We got some folks who might be in medical professions. We got counselors, clinicians, social workers, who are the folks who have dedicated their lives to helping other people. And sometimes when we are walking alongside, doing life with people. Sometimes it's family members. Their hurt is so heavy that it starts impacting us. It starts deeply distressing us. So we carry our own trauma and theirs. Sometimes we call it secondary trauma, vicarious or secondary trauma. How can you functionally do what you're supposed to do when you're carrying all of this? And then, friends and family, we got this thing called epigenetic trauma. We have empirical research, empirical, proven research that shows that trauma is inheritable. You can pass that stuff down in your DNA from generation to generation. Just like you can inherit freckles and dimples, you can also inherit trauma. So I implore you to think about the long-term impacts of what we're experiencing. We're carrying a lot in our bodies, not just the workday, but we're carrying our parents' heaviness, our grandparents' heaviness, particularly if you come from cultural disenfranchisement, racial disenfranchisement. We're carrying all of that, and then we show up for work like it's just Wednesday or Thursday. How? And this doesn't count the other kinds of trauma. SAMHSA lists different kinds of things like abuse. That may have happened in your adulthood, neglect, natural disasters. Think about our immigrant and refugee colleagues who have survived things unimaginable that we could never comprehend. War, health issues, medical issues, different forms of systemic oppression. What if the way that you identify and the eyes through which you see the world are not a protected class? We're experiencing a lot of these things now, right? These are also traumas. I ask you to think about your story. What's going on in your story that might be an old wound or a different kind of wound that has nothing to do with the workplace? But I implore you to think about and reflect on the possibility that your other stuff is showing up at work. We were trained a long time ago to separate the personal from the professional. Separate your personal from professional. How? If you're a whole person, right? I'm a mother. How could I go to the workplace and then splinter off the fact that I'm a mother and leave that in the car? If I'm partnered in a relationship with a person I care about, I splinter off my person and I leave them in the car till I'm done with the workday. If I have a sick family member, I forget that I'm connected to that sick family member until it's 5:02 and I'm back in the car. We're whole people. We're whole people. And now we have workplaces who say, bring your whole self to work. Do you really want that? Because when you got a piece of my whole self, you definitely didn't want me bringing all that into place. What is going on? What are we really bringing into the workplace? What are we really carrying with us? Have we chosen to do this kind of work to help other people survive and thrive beyond things that we experience, and did we seek our own healing? Or did we just start doing the work, right? So I want to talk a little bit about how trauma manifests itself. Trauma has physiological manifestations. It shows up in our behavioral patterns. It shows up in our physical health. It shows up in our mental health. So I'm curious how many of you have had, maybe a day or a week or maybe a month or a year at work where it's just like, this is a lot going on, but it's all good. It's not all good, because maybe you thought that you left that behind, but you probably didn't. It's probably showing up in your relationships. It's probably showing up in what you're calling your coping strategies. I've talked with friends, family members who are maybe having a couple extra glasses of wine, who picked up a smoking habit, who have no motivation to move after a hard work day. When we see this thing I have referenced here called the 4Fs, these 4Fs are fight or flight. You hear about fight or flight. We probably don't always hear about freeze. We don't always hear about fawn. There's another one I recently heard called flock. Sometimes we get afraid, we get overwhelmed, we're in survival mode, right? You're getting triggered at work. You're getting triggered while trying to do the work, however you define the work. And you still have to navigate through that and somehow be your best for yourself, for others, for your career, for the work that needs to be done. And meanwhile, your brain is trying to survive the moment. And those two things do not go together. Brilliance and survival neurologically are existing in two different places in your brain. So if we're thinking that we're just thugging it out and we're still going to do some brilliant work, I promise you, your brain does not work that way. It's going to help you survive first. So what happens if you're surviving the workday? Or what happens if you're surviving your career? You're surviving this job right now, right? Are you fighting everybody and you don't even realize you are? Are you fighting everybody at work? Do you swallow your pride at work and you fight everybody once you get home? Are you dropping things, leaving things, checking out of things? Is that how your flight is showing up? If you're freezing, do you feel completely immobile where you want to make a decision, but you're having a hard time? Like, I normally would say something. I normally would. I just can't get the words out, or I can't get myself to do anything. And I want to. It's just not coming out. You might be freezing. Fawning is a whole thing where we acquiesce. Sometimes we're in situations where we can't escape the pain. We can't escape the trauma that's coming. And so in those cases, what we do is we submit to it, not because we're weak or passive, but because it might be inescapable. What happens to the mother who needs that job? She can't just quit the job and say, I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm leaving. Y'all not going to talk to me like you crazy. I got mouths to feed, or I got bills to pay. I have people that I'm supporting. I can't just walk off this job. So we submit. We submit to the bad manager who's treating us wrong. We submit to too much work and too little pay. We submit to duties that should not be ours. We submit to things that we know are unacceptable because we feel like we have to. And we're trying to lessen the pain that we perceive to be unavoidable. I have to go through this. What can I do to make this? Sometimes our brains take over for us. 4Fs. Flock is when we're looking to other people to say, what is everybody else doing? Maybe I can be safe in the cover of others. But what happens if you have colleagues and they're not safe either? Then nobody's safe. There's books now talking about psychological safety at work. What happens if your workplace feels dangerous? What happens if by this point you've been so demoralized that in your own consciousness, you don't feel safe? So if I don't feel safe internally, how could I feel safe externally? And then what if the work starts becoming harmful? When we're having these experiences, they turn into trauma. This happened to me in the workplace. I started getting sick. I started having gastrointestinal issues. I started having spells where I was passing out. They were trying to figure out, am I having an inner ear issue? Am I having a cardiovascular issue? They had me seeing a neurologist, right? It can show up. I was losing weight. I started having issues with my skin. My hair started trying to fall out. I later on found out I had alopecia. My alopecia was triggered from a bad workplace experience. All my life, dormant, and the trauma of the workplace triggered it and brings stuff to life. Trauma actually recodes disease in your body. Recodes disease, family. Don't let work kill you. Don't let work make you sick, because it will. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease. We're going to the doctor sometimes for them to symptomatically fix things that are wrong with us, and there might be a deeper issue, might be connected to trauma. I realized in that bad work situation I was in that I was having panic attacks that were looking like physical health issues. They were looking like disease. It was panic attacks. I had no idea. Sometimes it's showing up in your mental health, depression, anxiety. Maybe you're so overwhelmed that you just start dissociating. You just check completely out. You have a numb, flat affect. It seems like you don't feel anything anymore. How is it showing up for you? Does it get so heavy that you or a colleague or a loved one you know almost feels like, what's the point? What's the point of even doing this work? Nobody cares about it. Or I don't feel like anybody cares about me, right? That's when we start getting into the suicide ideation. We can't lose any more people to this work. I want to check in with you. For those who are watching, I'm asking you if you can put it in the comment section. How are you doing? Like for real, for serious, family. How are you doing? Are you okay? As we're reviewing some of these physiological manifestations of trauma, do you see yourself in any of these things? How is your sleep? How are you sleeping? How's it going with you in digestion of food? Do you have a high resting pulse where your heartbeat just doesn't even slow down? Do you breathe in your neck instead of your belly? Are you constantly jittery? How are you doing? What's really going on with you? What's going on with us? What's going on with us? So then I call this, as you might notice, the lunch and unlearn. And I want to propose that there's some things that we need to unlearn. We need to unlearn some things. Cultural code switching. Anyone familiar with this? Cultural code switching, where when I'm my truest version of myself, I'm one way. But when I go into this environment, if I want to survive the environment, I have to be somebody else or tweak a little bit, right? You don't like how I talk, so I got to talk a little bit differently so you take me seriously. You don't like my clothes. You perceive me to be presenting myself a certain way if I wear certain kinds of clothing. You have a perception that I'm making a political statement if my hair looks a certain way. What am I changing to try to fit in a space or to be accepted into a space? What am I changing about myself? And should I be changing that about myself? What is behind that? If we're doing cultural code switching, what's behind the cultural code switch? Am I trying to make other people feel safe around me? Am I trying to feel safe? Does nobody feel safe? And if that's the case, how are we doing any kind of work, particularly if it's supposed to be equity focused, justice focused? We quite literally have folks who are doing equity work while experiencing inequity in the workplace. You know they don't treat you right. And you got to push out this policy to make somebody else feel better about working there. And you don't feel good working there, right? That's cognitive dissonance. So we're trying to make it fit, make it work. How can I fit in this place? I'm going to work twice as hard as them. I got all my degrees on my wall. But my neighborhood people, they know me a different way. I just got to show up here and do this a little bit different. I'm putting on the armor. That's exhausting, family. That's absolutely exhausting. And I have seen people who code switch so profoundly that the code switch becomes traumatic because they forget who they are. We cannot afford to forget who we are because we're trying to get some work done. Will that job care? Will the job care if you are killing yourself to be somebody else so that you fit the perception of who you're supposed to be as a professional? What is that modeling even for the folks? I think about the folks who are working with students, right? How are we doing? Tasha, I see you saying my physically, my body needs something. Yes. I see you talking about I'm a freezer. Like, we are having experience, we're having real experiences, and adulting tells us to ignore the things we're experiencing. Yo, we got this living in our bodies. And real talk, like I said, we don't fix it, we pass it on. We pass it on. Yolanda, I see you. I see the word coping. But listen, she says, and if you don't mind, I'm going to shout you out. Look what our friend says. In my spirit, I'm not well. I challenge us. Thank you so much, Yolanda, for saying that. I challenge us to think about, like, is all well with your soul? With what you're trying to do? And when it gets heavy, I caution us to think about martyrdom. We got movement martyrdom. Think about when we've seen this work done historically. All of our greats, not all of them, but a lot of the people who have done great work, we lose them early. We lose them early. And sometimes we ourselves say things like, I would die for this work. I've said that before. I would die for this work. I would die for this work. Until my children were like, ma'am, I need you to not die for the work. I would like you to be a grandmother. Or at least, even if you're not a grandmother, I would like you to just be around and have some longevity in the family. You can't do that if you die for the work. I'm trying to live for my family, live for my community. I caution us to think about whether it is explicit or implicit. Have we adopted martyrdom mentality? That's dangerous. That's super dangerous. And then this whole service as self-care. Some of us have had experiences that have been profoundly heavy. Loss, abuse, neglect, things that have just broken our spirits and our hearts. And maybe we went through that thing and we survived the thing, but we didn't want that thing to happen to anybody else. So what do? We jump in and we start getting busy. Let's go do the work. Let's go do the work. We're going to help everybody else. We're going to make sure everybody's okay. Are you okay, fam? Are you okay? Did you heal that thing that was broken in you? Or did you just get busy trying to heal that thing that was broken in other people? Meanwhile, you're fractured. And you're healing other people's souls. That's not sustainable. Service, while beautiful, while altruistic, while much needed, service is not self-care. And this surface level self-care, we don't even know how to take care of ourselves. In some cases, we don't even know what we need. Some of us are so independent that if somebody asked us, we would deny the help. Nope, I got it. You sure? Nope, I got it. I'm all good. You're not all good. You don't got it. We don't got it. We are not okay. We're not okay. And it's okay to say that we're not okay, but it can't stop there. So it's just like, so what are we going to do? Here's the other thing that we have to unlearn. We, whether we admit it or not, particularly BIPOC folks, particularly those who live lives, and I through the lens of identity as a woman, we have somehow believed that our productivity is equal to what we are valued at or worth. Like if we do one more thing on that things to do list, now I have earned the right to be considered valuable. Let me do this one more thing. Well, I got to do this because I don't want anyone thinking I'm stuck, and I got to keep doing this, keep pushing. Through the migraine, through the upset stomach, through the high blood pressure, we keep pushing so that everyone will know that we were productive. And we met the need. I'm valuable. You need me. You need me, right? So that I can survive. Think about the relationship between Black and brown bodies from economically disenfranchised bodies in the United States. We were expendable, arguably still are. So if somebody thinks I'm valuable, I have a chance of sticking around a little bit longer. So let me work harder for you. Sometimes it's not for me, right? Let me work harder for you so that I can prove that I'm worthy. You were worthy, family, when you woke up this morning. Because you breathe air in your body, you were valuable. You are valuable. And it has nothing to do with your things to do list. We have to interrupt this. We're working ourselves to death. And what we don't want to say out loud is that some of the work that we're doing where we're working ourselves to death, some people don't care. That's the thing we don't want to admit. There's some people out there who don't care about what we're doing. They do not care. And they'll let us work ourselves to death, and then they'll keep it moving. That hurts. And we have to admit that that hurts. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to war for our wellness. Healing is a birthright. And we do this for other people. We don't do it for ourselves. Aren't you worthy of it? You have all of these amazing gifts. Aren't you worthy of receiving these gifts? Our stories matter. We've been screening them just to tell people like, I'm worth living on the planet. We got stories, constantly evolving stories, or at least the stories might want to evolve. There's a next version of you that wants to be birthed. Are you trapping yourself in the old version of you? Are you trapping yourself in the old definition? Are you trapping yourself in the old story, the old way you define success? Somebody else's way of measuring if you are worthy or doing a good job? Have you given yourself permission to evolve, to rewrite your story, to change the parameters, maybe to change the work that you do? Your story has to matter to you. We straight up and down got situations where we're not even the main character in our own stories. We are serving and supporting so many people and organizations and all of the things and the places. You've lost yourself in your own story. You're not even there in your own story. Where are you in your story? Or have you become an extra and other people are the main? Our energy is contagious. When we're in spaces with people, sharing human spaces, that energy is contagious. I know you feel the toxicity when you're around someone who's not well, right? We say hurt people hurt people. That's what that is. Our energy is contagious. If I'm not well, obviously I don't care about if you're okay because I'm not. You matter less because I'm trying to survive. And if I'm in survival mode, I'm not thinking about your survival. I'm thinking about my survival. That's why we have to do better than just survive things. What are you giving in spaces that might be toxifying other people? Just because you're not well. You're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to survive the day, the meeting, the career, the moment. Versus healing. If we switch that out and we start healing, the healing is contagious. Wouldn't that be a wonderful contagion? Just being light, knowing that you can go into a place and simply because you are either healthy and healed and whole or pursuing health, pursuing healing, pursuing being whole, that light emanates out of you and it brings light to other people. Like that can be contagious if we lean into it. Or are we so focused on other people that we forgot about our own light? Like we're doing so much shadow work that we forgot about our own light, tending to our own light. Even lighthouses have something called a keeper of the lighthouse. The lighthouse needs work and mending as well. It's cool to be a lighthouse, but you need that maintenance too. You are worthy of that. And then our word. This is all we have at the end of the day is my word. Our word is our bond. This is our connection. This is how we create reality. And for our own stories, for our own words and the realities that we're creating, are we speaking truth power for ourselves as much as we're doing it for other people? You are your first revolution. What are you doing for your revolution, for you, so that there's sustainability in all the gifts you have to offer to the world? So here's some suggestions, some things that we're doing inside of chemistry that I want to just make sure more of us are getting well. I don't want this stuff to be like 3 people are cool and everybody else is sick. So we're looking to do some cohort coaching. I have been talking lately with several different people who are all experiencing this and they feel alone. And I'm just curious about what y'all's thoughts are if we just bring some of us together, and instead of me just coaching one person at a time and one person, I want us all to be well. So if you're interested in maybe some cohort coaching for some folks who are all trying to figure out what's next to level up together. We know research has shown that BIPOC folks actually do better in community practice. So maybe you need to heal some by yourself, but some together. So if you're interested in this, maybe you should consider some cohort coaching and we can build together. We'll do the work together. We'll be a hot mess together. We'll evolve together. We keep, flippantly and superfluously talking about the village. Well, let's get well in the village. What will it look like? We have support groups. Some of them are closed, but we're looking at possibly adding some new support groups. So what would that look like? Might you be interested in that? Where we really dig in, man. I want to give a shout out to Amber Harris, where we can form chosen family. Sometimes our birth families aren't trying to get healthy, healed, and whole. So where do we practice it when we are? Our pursuit in healing is an individual journey. And one of the hard lessons, one of the hard pills to swallow for us is that you can't make folks come with you. You can't force other people to get healthy, healed, and whole. You might have some boundaries that you straight up need to put in place at work, at home. Do you have a partner that's not really cheering for you? Do you have a boss who's taking your glory? And if they hadn't, it would have changed the trajectory of your career. Have you stifled and shrunk your own voice? And do you need supports to help build back up? I just want us to be well. I want us to have every tool in place to be able to be well. So what I'm asking for you to do is to choose you. I went through this myself. And it's an iterative process of choosing us. Choose you. It's okay. It's not being self-centered. You are centering yourself in your story. What do you need so that you can be better equipped to do what you have been called to do? I want to give a shout out to Doc Ralph Sims, who I think had been on here. One of the things we talked about is for some people, they have a skill set, right? Tools, toolkit, skill sets. Some people have gifts and talents. For some of us, what's sitting on us is deeper than a skill set. It's deeper than skills and tools and a degree, trainings and professional development sessions. For some of us, it's an anointing. When you have an anointing on you to do this work, the calling chose you. You didn't pick it. What do you need? What do you need to be honest and true to that calling? What do you need to be well so that your healing is contagious? So that wherever you go, because you are doing the work, somebody knows it's possible. It's possible to heal from that childhood trauma. It's possible to put down the burden of the vicarious trauma. It's possible to break, we sometimes call them generational curses. It's possible to break the generational trauma curse because I'm warring for my wellness. Choose me so I can give this gift to other people, because if it's a true gift, the gift ain't for you. The gift is for other people. But I have to be well enough to be able to distribute this gift. Please choose you. So you can go back and choose everybody else and do the work that you're doing. So if you're interested in putting in the work, and I know this is not for everybody. I want to be super honest about this. Most people don't choose to do the work. They do not. And it's unfortunate. And we've seen people who we really love suffer and get stuck in their stories, stuck in that job that's killing them, stuck in that relationship that's killing them, stuck in bad situations that are killing them. And I choose to live and not die. And I want you to choose it too. I can't choose it for you. I choose for us to be healthy. I choose for us to be healed. I choose for us to be whole. And I'm dedicating my life to helping to walk alongside as many people as possible who want to do the work. It's a lot of work, and it's hard, and it's heavy, and it's worth it. It'll change your body. You literally can recode your brain. You can change health conditions in your body when you war for this wellness. If you're interested, like in trying to figure out what's next, email us. Let me know if you're interested. We'll set this up, be ready to go and rally for our wellness. We can get you register for the next cohort. And then the major thing is this step 3. Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to reset the expectations? Are you willing to redefine what success means for you? Are you willing to face some of the things that we were just shrugging off that might have been a legit trauma that you need deeper work to address? Are you going to do the practical application, the homework, so that you start this healing journey, so that we break these cycles? What if what you have been called to do has nothing to do with the job that you're in? What if what you've been called to do is tied to your personal story, which means no degree you get could qualify you to do that? Maybe you've been called to something really heavy, really deep. And maybe that calling requires you to be well because you're going to model it in every space you go. Maybe it's for the students you support. Maybe it's for the patients that you care for. This is for us. We have to do this for us. We have to do this for us. I almost get emotional about this because I don't want to receive another call from a friend or family member or a colleague whose body is suffering because they're carrying work, labor that doesn't love them back. We can do better. We can be better. So I am actually going to, I want to lean in. We have some time left, and I want to see if there are thoughts, questions, feelings, comments, concerns, grievances, 16 bars. How we doing, family? How are you? What do you need? What do you need? If you're still here, if you're still tuned in, drop something in the chat. Let's share this wisdom while we're still on here. Remember, after this moment, when we're done, this is for us right now. Later on, I'll share this video with others on my YouTube channel. But if you have questions that we need to really answer together, post this so that I can share it with the village. If you have questions about what the journey looks like, post it. Let's talk about it together. What do you need? I see you said a timeout. I need a timeout. Listen, sis, one of the things we were talking about in one of our origin support groups was stillness. And one of the things our people brought up is that as a culture, do we know how to be still? And I don't mean sit in a chair. I don't mean like get somewhere and sit down. I mean, do we know how to energetically be still? We have such a sense of urgency to just survive the moment. Would we know what to even do with a timeout? We need them. What do we do with it? What do we do with it? I see you, Deirdre. Yes. Like, we're designed to be social. There's an African philosophy called Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because you are because I am. We exist as people through the relationship and connection of other people. So why can't we heal together? And let me just say this. This wasn't even part of the PowerPoint, but I'm going to just say this because I want to be direct about this. We have spent too much time, and I don't know where this came from because it's not our origin value system as BIPOC people. We have spent too much time suffering in our own house and calling it house business. That's nobody else's business. So you gonna suffer in your house and then walk outside and act like everything's okay? Why? Why are we not being honest about, like, I need you? Like, family, I need you. I need you to be well. We need each other. I love what you said there, Bridget. Bridget said, listen, I don't got it. I do not got it. and you're not alone. I don't got it either. We don't got it. We do not got it. We need each other. We need each other. So if you're interested, I'm going to put up information so that you can email us, and we will get started, and we'll put this. We have a cohort. We're getting the registrations together for the cohort. We do want to keep the cohort small. I did see someone ask about that. Shout out to Izetta, who's doing amazing work with our young people and with our teachers, making sure our teachers get it, right? And being trauma informed, culturally sensitive, and humble. We really don't want the cohorts to be larger than about 10, 15 so that we can go deep. So if we have a request for more, then I will just create more cohorts, but I don't want the cohort being bigger than that so that we can get deep. So we can get deep. Shout out to Chris Apple. He said, I need accountability, inspiration. This is what happens when we get well in public. Hold me accountable. I'm gonna have a bad day. There's gonna be sometimes when I'm a hot mess. I need you to love me through that, right? Part of the practice of Ubuntu, there's a word, sabubona. Sabubona means I see you. And that's what I see in what you said there, Chris. Accountability and inspiration. See me. See that I need you. See that I might have a weak moment. We got to do this together. So I want to make sure that I share our information. You'll see here, it's small print. And if you hit me up, I will make sure that you get more information on this. What we'll do is if you send the email at info@chemistry.net, just info, I-N-F-O, at chemistry, KIMISTRY.net. If you send an email there, we will send you more information on how to register for the cohort. We're trying to make this so that it's not cost prohibitive. Individual coaching sessions is like, sometimes that can just get mad expensive. And sometimes people need the village anyway. So it's like, why then do it in a way that is not as helpful? We got folks who could testify that healing together sometimes is more powerful. So I've been having like a bazillion conversations with people individually. I want us to just see what it looks like to heal together. So the info at Chemistry is there. Our toll-free number for Chemistry is there. It's 866-546-7879. And maybe if you weren't here for you, maybe this is hitting on somebody else that you're thinking about, right? Inside of this call and response in Ubuntu, there's a line that says, wherever I go, I carry you with me. And wherever you go, you carry me with you. Have you carried someone into this conversation today that you're like, I know somebody who needs this. I know somebody who might need to war for our wellness. Like, y'all, we got all this stuff sitting in our body. This stress, this burnout, this trauma is sitting like shrapnel in our bodies. And like I said earlier, it recodes disease in our body. This is how we get sick. This is how we die. I'm not dying for work. I'm not. And we're not just warring for justice and equity. Aren't we warring for joy? Like, I want to just have peace. I want to have sovereignty. And Chris said something in there, said like, we're building stuff. We don't know that. We've not seen it before. Do we know what it feels like to be free for real? Internally free? Like, I want it to be where, like, I'm not centering systemic oppression in my life. It's not the center of my story. My legacy is, my joy is, my family is, my chosen family is, my village is. So if oppressive measures are not central to my story, can't I then work to be joyful? Can't I war for my wellness so that it is holistic? That it's not that I just got a good night's sleep, but I'm still going to fall over and die. That's not what all I'm fighting for. We can do this for real. I believe that we can do this for real. For real. It's no playing around. So, like I said, this is not for everybody. It calls for us to be really honest. Are you ready? Are you ready to be honest about your situation? Are you ready to be honest with yourself about what it's going to take? Are you ready to be honest with yourself that it might be that you thought some stuff was happening because of work and you found out like, ooh, that was deeper. I can tell you, in my deepest workplace traumas, and this is, hand to God, in my deepest workplace traumas, what it triggered was deep levels of neglect and abandonment that I experienced in childhood. It hurt like that. It hurt like a broken heart. I believe we can mend those things. I've mentioned this before. Some of you know, you've heard me mention this. Even if you feel broken right now, or if you're listening to this and you're thinking about someone else and you're thinking, I know somebody who feels broken right now. I'm telling you to think about this as the Japanese art form of kintsugi, right? You have a porcelain cup, it breaks into all these pieces. Normally we would throw it away. In kintsugi, you grab the broken pieces together and you glue them back together with gold. You mend the broken pieces with gold. And then in doing so, this item becomes more valuable than it was whole. Its worth is in the broken pieces, in the mending, right? The framework for trauma is rupture and repair. We're not always harmed by the rupture as much as we're harmed when there's no repair. So it's not your fault. It is not your fault. The traumas that you've experienced in your family, if people didn't, they didn't have the capacity to love you or to meet your needs the way you need it. Those things are not your fault. Something foul or unjust or inequitable happened at work. That's not your fault. You cannot carry it and try to do that work as if it's your job and your responsibility. That's not your fault. What is your responsibility is your healing journey. That's your work. That's our work. That's my work. That stuff, the funky stuff, the dumpster fire, I didn't start that dumpster fire. But I'm going to heal my vagus nerve. I'm going to regulate myself. I'm going to do all the things I need to do so that not only do I get well, I break the generational trauma that's trying to go for my babies. And I get to be a lighthouse so that anyone who comes in my presence, I'm warning to make sure that anybody who comes in my presence has no choice but to get some of this healing, because that's what I'm in it for. And I believe we are all working to do that. You do this work anyway. Do it on purpose. You heal anyway. Heal on purpose. I will make sure that for those who do hit us up, remember, just email us info@chemistry.net. We will send you information on setting up this cohort. We are looking to get started in July because I don't like waiting. If we're going to get well, let's get well. I want to get well now. So we will get started, set this cadence in place for the cohorts. Like I said, if we have a resounding response, I'll just make more cohorts, but I want to keep them small so that we can really lean into getting to relearn ourselves, relearn our stories, and then learn other people's stories so that we know we're not alone. Ubuntu is real. Ubuntu is real. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for unlearning with me on today. Please make sure that you connect with somebody. Tell somebody you love them. Give flowers to the living and get ready to do the work. I see you. I am grateful for you. You are worthy. You are worthy. You are so worthy. You are so valued. You are seen. You are felt. You are heard. You are appreciated. The work needs you. The community needs you. The movement needs you. Justice needs you. And we need you well. We need you well. Thank you so much for joining. Have an amazing rest of your day. And we hope to see you soon, family. Be well. Be in touch. Don't be strangers. Take care.